The mid-1980s were supposed to be a time of promise for Los Angeles. The city had emerged as a symbol of culture, glamour, and diversity. Yet, under the neon lights and sunny beaches, there was something sinister moving in the shadows. Families, once confident in their suburban safety, suddenly found themselves staring at their locked doors in terror. No place seemed secure. The newspapers ran headlines dripping with blood. The television warned of a faceless predator who slipped in and out of homes as though he were smoke. This was no ordinary criminal. He did not have a single type of victim. He struck the old and the young, men and women, rich and poor. His methods were savage, his motives tangled in lust, satanic worship, and a thirst for domination. He was, to all who lived through those years, the embodiment of fear. His name, Richard Ramirez, the world would come to know him as the Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez was born in El Paso, Texas, in 1960, the youngest of 5 children. His father, Julian, was a stern man with a volatile temper. At home, discipline often meant violence. His mother worked long hours in a factory, leaving Richard exposed to both neglect and abuse. From early childhood, Richard showed signs of detachment from reality. He suffered frequent head injuries, including one from a swing accident that left him unconscious for hours. Modern psychology often links childhood head trauma with later antisocial behavior, and in Richard's case, it may have fueled his growing instability. Richard sought refuge outside the home. Cemeteries became his sanctuary. Among the gravestones, he found a strange kind of peace, dark, quiet, and far from his father's rage. Yet that peace was not innocent, it was the soil where a fascination with death took root. The most influential figure in young Richard's life was his older cousin, Miguel Mike Ramirez, a Vietnam veteran. Mike often boasted of his wartime atrocities. He showed Richard Polaroid photographs of women he had raped and murdered overseas. For a teenage boy already haunted by violence, these images were transformative. They fused sex and brutality in Richard's mind. One evening, in a moment that would scar Richard forever, he witnessed Mike shoot and kill his wife during an argument. Blood sprayed across the kitchen walls. For most, such an event would be traumatizing. For Richard, it was an initiation. Violence was no longer shocking, it was normal. By the time Richard reached adolescence, he was already experimenting with drugs, theft, and the occult. He drifted into the streets of El Paso, then California. The boy who once sought escape in graveyards was evolving into something far darker. In Los Angeles, Richard's life spiraled. Cocaine became his obsession. He lived a transient existence, cheap motels, alleys, and abandoned buildings. His gaunt appearance, rotting teeth, and intense, hollow eyes would later make him instantly recognizable. During these years, his interest in Satanism deepened. He read occult texts and adorned himself with pentagrams. He didn't merely believe in the devil, he aspired to be his servant. For Richard, murder would not just be crime, it would be ritual. Burglary was his first serious offense. He learned how to slip into homes, often through unlocked doors or open windows. Yet, unlike most thieves, Richard didn't just take possessions. He studied his victims, lingered in their bedrooms, sometimes watched them sleep. Soon, theft was not enough. Burglary became foreplay. The thrill of possession expanded into the thrill of power. Power over lives. Power over death. June 28, 1984, 79-year-old Jenny Vincow was found dead in her Los Angeles apartment. Her throat was slashed so deeply she was nearly decapitated. The brutality shocked even seasoned detectives. Police initially thought it might be a robbery gone wrong, but there was a signature in the violence, rage, cruelty, and desecration, that murder should have been the warning of what was coming. But without evidence or witnesses, the case went cold. In March 1985, the killings returned. Richard shot 22-year-old Maria Hernandez as she pulled into her garage. Miraculously, she survived by raising her hands. The bullet ricocheted off her keys. Inside the house, however, her roommate, Dale Okazaki, wasn't as fortunate. Richard executed her with a gunshot to the head. That same evening, Richard struck again. He dragged Cillian Veronica Yu from her car and shot her. 2 murders in a single night. Los Angeles awoke to the realization a predator was stalking them. In the following months, the attacks escalated, each more depraved. Couples were murdered in their beds. Women were raped, sometimes in front of their husbands, before both were killed. Children were assaulted and abandoned, their innocence destroyed. Satanic symbols, including inverted pentagrams, were scrawled on walls and bodies. The randomness of his victims made him all the more terrifying. Unlike other serial killers, Ramirez had no pattern of gender, age, or ethnicity. He hunted anyone. By the summer of 1985, Los Angeles was gripped by collective paranoia. News stations gave nightly updates on the Night Stalker. People nailed their windows shut, bought guard dogs, and formed neighborhood watch patrols. Gun sales skyrocketed. Hardware stores sold out of locks, chains, and alarm systems. Parents slept in shifts, one awake to guard the family while the other rested. The crimes themselves grew more sadistic. In some cases, Ramirez forced his victims to swear loyalty to Satan before killing them. In others, he laughed while torturing his prey. Survivors spoke of his breath reeking of decay, his eyes empty of humanity. The psychological impact was enormous. Families no longer felt safe in their own homes, the one place where safety was supposed to be absolute. Ramirez didn't just kill people, he killed security. He shattered the social contract of home as sanctuary. As the body count climbed, detectives across Los Angeles County faced a daunting task. The killer struck in different neighborhoods, using different weapons, and targeting different kinds of victims. There was no clear pattern, no age, gender, or background uniting the dead. For law enforcement, this lack of consistency was maddening. Serial killers typically followed a signature or victim profile. Ramirez defied that expectation. He could shoot a young woman in her car, bludgeon an elderly couple in their home, and sexually assault a child, all within days of each other. Detectives from various precincts tried to coordinate, but the bureaucratic sprawl of Los Angeles law enforcement created delays. The LAPD, the Sheriff's Department, and smaller local forces often withheld information, worried about losing control of the case. Meanwhile, the Night Stalker prowled unchecked. Witness descriptions painted a picture of a gaunt man with dark, wild hair, bad teeth, and piercing eyes. But there was no composite sketch that everyone agreed upon. Ramirez was a phantom, slipping in and out of houses like smoke, leaving behind scenes drenched in blood. The press, meanwhile, feasted on the chaos. Headlines screamed about the devil worshipper haunting Los Angeles. Reporters published gruesome details of crime scenes, further fueling the public's fear. Television anchors reminded viewers that the Night Stalker was still at large, often ending broadcasts with, "Lock your doors. Bolt your windows. He could be anywhere." The city lived in fear, and the police were running out of time. His breakthrough came almost by accident. At one crime scene, investigators noticed a dusty imprint on the floor. It was a shoeprint, distinctive and unusual. The sole had a unique pattern, traced back to a specific brand of sneaker, Avia. Detectives canvassed local stores and discovered that only one type of Avia shoe with that sole pattern had been sold in California. Even more importantly, only a handful of pairs existed nationwide. This was not just a clue, it was a trail. The shoe print connected multiple murders, tying together crimes previously thought unrelated. For the first time, investigators had tangible evidence that a single killer was responsible for the city's nightmare. Meanwhile, survivors who had glimpsed Ramirez provided more details: a tall, thin man, his teeth rotting, his eyes wild. Some described a pentagram tattooed on his hand. Others recalled his chilling command, "Swear to Satan." Finally, police had a face. With the help of witnesses, they created a composite sketch. When it was released to the public in August 1985, the city buzzed with recognition. People whispered in cafes, gas stations, and grocery stores. The Night Stalker was no longer a shadow, he had a face. August 30, 1985, Richard Ramirez boarded a Greyhound bus in Arizona, returning to Los Angeles. Unaware that his face was plastered across newspapers and television screens, he walked into the Lion's Den. When Ramirez entered a convenience store in East LA, customers recognized him immediately. His gaunt face, the hollow eyes, the rotten teeth, it was unmistakable. "That's him," someone whispered. Within moments, the entire neighborhood erupted. Ramirez fled, sprinting through the streets. Residents chased him, shouting, "El Matador! The killer!" He tried to carjack a vehicle, but the driver fought back. As he ran, a mob gathered, surrounding him, finally, cornered and exhausted. Ramirez was dragged to the ground by civilians. They beat him mercilessly, holding him down until police arrived. The predator who had terrorized millions was now reduced to a bloodied, desperate man begging for his life. The irony was not lost on anyone: the people he had terrorized had brought him down. The trial of Richard Ramirez was one of the most sensational in American history. Beginning in 1988, it drew worldwide attention. Courtrooms overflowed with reporters, victims' families, and the curious public. Ramirez played to the spectacle. On his first court appearance, he raised his hand to display a pentagram tattoo and shouted, "Hail Satan!" Gasps filled the room. For him, the courtroom was not a place of justice, it was a stage. The trial dragged on for over 3 years, costing taxpayers millions. Ramirez was charged with 13 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, 11 counts of sexual assault, and 14 counts of burglary. Witness after witness testified to his cruelty. Survivors recounted chilling details: his rotten breath, his mocking laughter, his whispered oaths to the devil. Forensic experts tied him to the obvious shoeprints, fingerprints, and DNA evidence. Throughout it all, Ramirez remained cold, smirking at times, as though reliving the thrill of his crimes. In September 1989, the jury returned its verdict, guilty on all counts. When the death sentence was read, Ramirez showed no fear. Instead, he leaned into the microphone and sneered, "Big deal. Death always went with the territory. See you in Disneyland." The capture and trial ended the killings, but the scars on Los Angeles and America remained. For families, the trauma was generational. Children who grew up in the mid-80s in Los Angeles still recall the paranoia: parents checking locks 5 times before bed, dogs barking through the night, neighbors staring suspiciously at strangers. The randomness of Ramirez's crimes destroyed the illusion of safety. Unlike other serial killers who targeted specific victims, Ramirez proved that anyone could be prey. Old, young, rich, poor, it didn't matter. Safety was shattered. Sociologists note that Ramirez's reign of terror reshaped public behavior. Alarm systems became a booming industry. Neighborhood watch programs multiplied. People no longer trusted the quiet of the night. Psychologically, Ramirez embodied the ultimate boogeyman: unpredictable, merciless, and seemingly everywhere at once. His connection to Satanism amplified the fear, merging real-world violence with supernatural dread. Even after his death in 2013, the Night Stalker remains a figure whispered about in Los Angeles. For many, the memory of that summer in 1985 is still raw. Richard Ramirez spent over 2 decades on death row at San Quentin State Prison. He never expressed remorse. To the end, he remained defiant, his black eyes burning with arrogance. He died in 2013 from complications of cancer, never executed. But his death did not end his legend. Books, documentaries, and TV shows continue to dissect his crimes. His story remains a cautionary tale of how darkness can thrive in plain sight. The Night Stalker is more than a chapter in criminal history. He is a reminder of vulnerability, of how fragile the fabric of safety truly is. His crimes force society to confront the terrifying truth: evil does not always lurk in distant shadows. Sometimes, it walks among us, breathing the same air, waiting for the cover of night. Similar cases, shadows beyond Ramirez. While Richard Ramirez stands as one of the most infamous serial killers in American history, his reign of terror was not unique. Other predators, in different decades and different cities, left scars just as deep. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, New York, 1976–77, New Yorkers lived in fear during the summer of '77, when a man with a .44 caliber revolver stalked couples in parked cars. Berkowitz claimed a demon-possessed dog commanded him to kill. His taunting letters to the police and media only deepened the city's paranoia. Joseph DeAngelo, the Golden State Killer, California, 1970s–80s, long before Ramirez, California was haunted by another predator. The Golden State Killer burglarized homes, assaulted women, and murdered families. He eluded capture for decades until DNA technology finally unmasked him in 2018, an ex-police officer hiding in plain sight. Dennis Rader, BTK, Kansas, 1974–91, Dennis Rader named himself bind, torture, kill. For years, he played a sadistic game with police, sending letters describing his crimes. Like Ramirez, he thrived on fear and control. When caught in 2005, he confessed without remorse, revealing a chilling double life as a family man and church leader. Richard Chase, the Vampire of Sacramento, California, late 1970s, a deeply disturbed man who believed drinking blood kept him alive. Richard Chase murdered families in their homes, echoing Ramirez's random brutality. His crimes blurred the line between mental illness and pure horror. Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee Cannibal, 1980s–90s, though vastly different in method, Dahmer's crimes, luring young men, killing them, and keeping grisly trophies, left America shaken. Like Ramirez, he became a symbol of inhuman cruelty hidden beneath an ordinary exterior. These killers, like Ramirez, reveal an uncomfortable truth: evil does not wear a uniform. It can appear as a neighbor, a co-worker, a stranger on the street. And while each case ended with capture, the psychological wounds they inflicted on their communities never truly healed.